for House File 3556. Representative Berg, would you make the motion to bring this before us for consideration?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move 3550, House File 3556 before the committee.
Thank you, Representative Berg. So, welcome back to your committee. Welcome back to the committee, Representative Jordan. Please introduce yourself and proceed with the testimony.
Thank you, Chair Pryor, and thank you, members. It's good to be back in education policy. I do miss serving on this committee. Maybe next year. You never know. But good afternoon. As I said, my name is Sydney Jordan. I represent Northeast Minneapolis and Southeast Como here. And today I'm here to present House File 3556, which is a bill to ensure students receive enough time to eat lunch. This is a bill to strengthen our successful universal school meals program, which, as you all know, passed on a bipartisan vote and was signed into law by Governor Tim Walz less than a year ago. Since then, I've heard from school districts, parents, and especially students about how transformational that bill has been for student success and happiness and family budgets. And the great news is that Minnesotans love the work we did to feed their kids. More Minnesota children are eating breakfast and lunch at school, with 30% more breakfasts and 16% more school lunches being served from the start of the school year versus 2022, when we did not have a universal meal program. And a recent KSTP poll showed that 70% of Minnesotans support universal school meals, and those numbers are even higher amongst our parents. NPR also did recent reporting on the quality of meals being served and found that the more students eat lunch at school, the better the food gets. So to briefly explain this bill, it's a short bill, which is not always what I write, but this bill would ensure that students have 15 minutes to eat the lunch. So as written, the 15 minutes would start after the student has received their lunch and does not include walking to and from the cafeteria or standing in line to wait for a lunch. The bill only applies to lunch, as many students utilize the breakfast after the bell model for breakfast distribution, and the feedback I have gotten from families is that the problem with the compressed meal times is more of a lunchtime problem. Furthermore, the 15 minutes is a floor. School districts are welcome, and I would personally encourage them to give more time to students to eat their lunch. And so, members, while lunch lines are longer than they were before we were feeding all children, this was a problem before we acted last year. Students, parents, and educators have bemoaned a lack of time to eat during the day for years. And in fact, over a quarter of other states have enshrined, and the District of Columbia have enshrined minimum lunch times for students. I could list the schools, but every time I do a Google search, I find a new state that has passed a similar piece of legislation. But one that I would note is New Mexico, which also has universal school meals and has a mandated 20 minutes for students to have time to eat. The CDC, in fact, recommends that students receive at least 20 minutes, again, to eat lunch during the day. And the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, I think that's how you pronounce that, found that students who didn't receive at least 20 minutes ate less nutritious meals. So students were less likely to select a piece of fruit and ate less of their entree and fewer vegetables. So I think we can all think about that in real life. We can think about, peeling a clementine or an orange, or I know it takes me a lot longer to eat a salad than it does to eat a bag of chips, which is unfortunate for me. But the bill is being laid over, members, and so it's continuing to be worked on, especially around some of the implementation. So I'm looking more at what other states are doing around implementation, because I think we know that other states are able to do it, but I know that districts are looking for more support. I've had conversations with several of those districts, and I'm particularly grateful to Josh Downham from Minneapolis Public Schools and Scott Cronquist with the Association of Metropolitan School Districts for their feedback and their willingness to continue to bring ideas forward. And I welcome your feedback as well. But before we get to that, I would like to hear from our testifiers, Madam Chair.
Right now, they're not here.
Well, I have some that are in the building.
Good. Bring this. That's
We are waiting on a student that is participating. Oh, sorry.
remotely.
Chair.
Excuse me. So this is a behind the scenes moment. Sorry, committee members. If you have an in-person testifier, please have that person come forward. All right. So please, welcome to our committee. Identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, Chair Pryor and members of the committee. My name is Kelly Kozel. I currently am on long-term leave, but I do work in Roseville Public School District as a nutrition assistant. I am also a mom of a special needs student who has autism, and that's partly why I got into school nutrition. I just want to thank the Universal School Program. It's very highly successful and much appreciated for so many families across of our state. It's wonderful. So going back to why I support HF 3556, in the lens of being a service worker, there is long lines, and I would just like to give the opportunity for students actually to have seated time of 15 minutes, having, a 20-minute total lunchtime, and if you spend 75% of it in line, it doesn't give the opportunity for the child to eat all their food, or sometimes just the anxiety of the lines itself is, it's so overwhelming. Kids choose for many reasons not to eat. So I truly believe with the long lines, what I've seen even before universal meals and after. From my experience, my son has adapted to the rush of school lunch. He eats dinner very, very fast. My husband's not familiar with public schools and how fast kids have to eat, and so he always questions me, like, why is he eating so fast? And it's like, because that's what they have to do in lunch. He oftentimes comes home from school hungry if, he'll say little things like, something happened at lunch, or, this class got behind. While I understand the emphasis of schools placing time in the classroom, our children deserve at least 15 minutes seated time to eat lunch. By meeting the basic need, they will also be more successful students. So that's basically from a parent, and as well as from MSNA, which is the Minnesota School Nutrition Program. That's why I support this bill.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Oh, we have both. Oh, wonderful. We have, yep. Magic. All right. I think next we have a student, Kamaya. If you can hear us, would you please unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the committee?
Hello.
Hello.
Committee. My name is Kamaya Oliver.
Yep, we can hear you.
Basically, okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And basically, I'm 19. I graduated Chaska High School, but I also went to like multiple other high schools in like Albert Lee and Eden Prairie and in Chaska. So I've had like different experiences throughout high school with lunch. And I don't know, I just didn't really ever eat that much of lunch because it wasn't too appealing to me. And even when I like had to eat lunch, it was because I wouldn't have like no time to eat lunch because the lines are so long And then when you finally get lunch, then the bell rings and you got to go to class. And it's like, it's a really bad situation. And I honestly think 15 minutes isn't even enough time, even after seated, because how are you even supposed to keep track of like when each student seats? Like by the time each student sits down, it's gonna be probably an hour, like guaranteed. Like depending on how big the school is, like at Eden Prairie, those lines were huge. So, and we had 4 different lunchrooms. It was just a real concern. And then one more thing that I wanted to talk about was yeah, that was it. Just the quality of the food and also the quantity. Um yeah, the quantity is like crazy because we have growing boys. I just looked at a lunch today, one of the school lunches, and I'm like, wow, this is literally a snack for a growing boy. Crazy. Yeah. So, and also all lunches need to be free to everybody because everybody it's just it's a right. Like how could you turn down food to a child? Like it's unbelievable to me. I haven't really seen too many students get turned down, but I did talk to a few students in Albert Lee that would bring their own lunch because their parents make too much. And I think that really sucks because it creates like social issues as well.
All right,
So
so we appreciate your
that's
testimony
it.
and the schools that you've attended. We can relate. We can relate. We do have one more testifier, Michelle Hawkinson. If you can unmute yourself and proceed. And we are getting to close to our session, so we hope we can hear your testimony and move on to member discussion.
Madam Chair, members, I'm Michelle Hawkinson, Food Service Director at Tracy Area Schools and the President of the Minnesota School Nutrition Association, and I'm here to offer MSNA's support for 15 minutes for seat time found at HF 3556. As you're aware, during the 2023 legislative session, a monumental bill was passed to offer 1 free breakfast and lunch to students on school days. This bill has led to an increase in participation in school meals. We have received many thanks from parents and students as it has been a tremendous help to families around the state. As we are thrilled that more students are receiving our nutritional meals, it has resulted in students not receiving the time they need to properly eat their lunch. Many times students are still eating their lunch when it's time for their class to leave to go to school. This is resulting students being rushed, eating too fast, or throwing away the food that have fueled them for the rest of the day. Lunch is supposed to be time for students to relax, catch up with friends, and enjoy a good meal. Creating a positive school meal environment, including providing adequate time to eat once a child receives their meals, is a proven strategy to help students reach their full academic potential and to improve their overall health and well-being. Studies have shown that longer school lunch periods are associated with increased student consumption of healthy foods, choices such as more fruits, vegetables, and less plate waste. Additionally, there is a direct correlation between a healthy diet and a student's ability to learn and thrive. In order for students to receive the nutrition they need to learn, MSNA would urge you to vote yes for HF 3556. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkinson. We can now move to member discussion, questions, and I have Representative Keeler.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative Jordan. I think it's very clear that I also love feeding Minnesota border to border, and that includes our schools and many other places. I have a couple questions more about how this actually works as we do it, right? Because one of the things that we know is that there are much longer lines because of what we did. I think that a big part of that would be, do you know in that change how many districts hired more nutrition service or food service employees? Because it's, I think part of it is that when you only have 2 people serving the food, it's hard to move these lines quickly. And so I'm interested to know that, and it can be something that the department or the food advocates can get back to me, because I think that's maybe part of the issue. The other thing, as I've carried other bills, that we really get time specific for schools that can increase the length of their day, and that increases teacher contracts and how long they're in schools, right? And so that's another beast that we would have to approach. Are those conversations, or can you explain to us how those conversations are working behind the scenes? Because as we've learned, when we tell our schools they need to do something and we don't provide honest solutions with that, it's hard to hold them accountable for that. And so, in my opinion, this is wonderful, and I absolutely agree. Just wonder what the financial component is, it to provide our nutrition services with more staff so that they can move kids through these lines quicker.
Representative Jordan, can you address these questions for this committee, which is the policy? And then I know that you're going to be doing further conversations in the Ed Finance Committee also. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair Pryor, and thank you, Representative Keeler, for both the questions and your deep commitment to feeding everyone. I know that I have heard anecdotally that schools have hired more people. I have also heard of schools wanting to hire more people to work in nutrition staff. I've also, heard from school districts and from nutrition workers that a lot of the work that we did last year to help those workers as well has helped with has helped people retain those jobs over the summer. I don't have those numbers on how many school districts have done more hiring as a result of this. And so I'm currently looking at what other states are doing, specifically New Mexico. And I hate to admit this, but the New Mexico governor, as there was part of their universal school meals was their seat time, because they had found that if they just said schools get a half hour for lunch, that students were still not getting, even before they passed universal meals, at least 20 minutes to eat. And so as a component of their universal school meals bill, they built, that is now in place, they have built in that lunchtime. I think there's like 25 states that have laws like this in place, and I know about 12 of them have that seat time. And so I think looking at what other states have done and getting feedback from districts, including yours, would be helpful on what they've done, would be good for that. I think there's also, there's more work we can do. The bill's being laid over to continue to have that work. So I think that's one of those ongoing questions about implementation. I think, 15 minutes is very much the floor. And it is critical that we're actually getting that time, because we do have schools that are huge. I went to a school that had 2,000 kids, and it would take me 5 minutes, in high school to walk to the cafeteria. So that's also part of it too, is sometimes that transit time can be difficult, especially as we heard, Eden Prairie has multiple cafeterias and multiple buildings. Not every school is the same. And so I think, if there's a school that does have a much smaller student body or a smaller footprint, that might look different than how the implementation would work in a school that has 2,000 kids.
Representative Keeler?
Okay, thank you. And I have one other follow-up question. Thank you for that. Count me in for whatever we need to do to look at data to make sure that we can do this. The next thing is I just kind of want to ask and verify, are we using 504 plans and IEPs to address this from a special education standpoint? I know that you mentioned your son probably would have identified or qualified for an IEP. Are we utilizing that tool to make sure that students who maybe have outside needs and need longer time, are we utilizing the IEP 504 network to address the seat time for food as well?
I would need to defer to us.
Right. And, if it's all right, Representative Keeler, I think that's an excellent question, and that I think we'll leave that for the author to get back to us on what the answer to that is and how that works. Is that satisfactory for today?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not a IEP or special education expert, so I'm not quite sure how that all goes into effect, but that would be something to look into.
Right, but not to dismiss the question, but to make sure that we get the best answer available.
Sounds good.
Thank you. I'm going to go Representative Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, I was excited to see we're talking about this. Wanted to know, I know we're laying this over, so wondering if you've considered also writing school breakfast into this. During the interim, I met with teachers, and some of the older students aren't like getting enough time to have breakfast in the morning, and so wanted to ask about that, and also wanted to amplify Rep. Keeler's question about staff time. I also understand sometimes there is pressure to shift from preparing breakfast to lunch, and so that justifies some of like the shorter times in the morning when schools are serving breakfast. I know we don't have that much time, but would love to chat and work with you on this. Just wanted to know that was a concern that teachers had and administrators had brought up during interim.
Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then to the breakfast. Breakfast is not including this because many, like most school districts utilize breakfast after the bell. And so that would be we don't have a breakfast time where students go and sit in a cafeteria and eat a bunch of pancakes. They get like a cereal bar and some milk to go and eat that during homeroom or first period. And so if we were going to include breakfast as part of that, it would need to be able to accommodate breakfast after the bell.
And I think if there's more questions, there's a great deal of interest in this bill, and I think the author would be willing to follow up. And Representative Bennett, do you have a question or comment at this point before we lay this bill over? All right. So, closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Looking forward to hearing from all of you on this. I think I think we can all agree that it is extremely common sense to give kids at least 15 minutes as a floor to eat. And that's what I really want us to focus on is kids need time to eat. I mean, I think we all agree that we do better when we have time to eat and focus on our food. And the other thing I want people to keep in mind is how important social and emotional learning is as part of our school day. And lunch is really where we teach that. That's a class period where kids learn how to be friends and have, lunchtime conversations with each other. And if you haven't had a chance to go and listen to elementary school kids converse over lunch, you are missing out.
All right. And with that, the chair lays over House File 3556.